We've turned to them every time we had a cough. Popular brands like Corex and Phensedyl, which together make up more than a third of India's cough syrup market, were banned by the Health Ministry, which cracked down not just on these, but 344 combination drugs, that is, drugs that have two or more active drugs in a single dosage form. Also on the list were a host of antibiotics, analgesics and antidepressants, many of which are widely sold over the counter even without prescriptions. Have we unknowingly been having medicines that were not only not beneficial but could actually harm us? Pharmaceutical companies, not surprisingly, say they've been wronged. Some of them have already moved court, like Pfizer, which has been allowed to carry on selling Corex cough syrup, for now at least.
The government cracking down on over 300 cocktail drugs, amongst them popular cough syrup Corex, manufactured by Pfizer. As the shares of the Indian unit of US-based drug maker Pfizer tumbled over 9%, the Delhi High Court stepped in, staying the government ban and asking, how can a company which is in market for 25 years be banned without opportunity? This after senior advocate Kapil Sibal, appearing for Pfizer, argued that the cough syrup was marketed in other countries as well. In medical stores across the country now, Corex cough syrup will not be available. This when, after the weekend, the government decided that over 300 combinations of drugs shall now be banned in the country. Now, the government panel, expert panel, which sat in over the weekend to look into these combinations, has said that these do not pose any medical viable conditions and in fact could be narcotic. And this is because of this reason that several other drugs, including Corex, will now be completely banned across the country. Corex is a combination of chlorpheniramine and codeine syrup, which the government panel now says has no therapeutic justification.
The other is many of these, particularly these cough suppressants and the cold drugs, are combinations of, of opioids like codeine, etc., which are sedatives, with other sedatives and fever medicine, etc., which are completely irrational combinations, which cause again side effects and also are used sometimes to export or send drugs into other countries.
Another popular drug that has gone off shelves is Phensedyl, also a codeine-based cough syrup which accounts for about a third of Indian cough syrup market. Phensedyl sales are estimated to make up more than 3% of Abbott's 1 billion Indian revenue. The company termed the Health Ministry's decision to ban their drug as a unilateral approach.
As far as the industry obviously is going to get hit because it's a big market. All the Indian players, Indian pharmaceutical industries are coming up with a whole lot of these fixed drugs combination which are very prevalent from small to big companies.
The ban has also highlighted gaping holes in the drug clearance rules in India. Experts say the banned combinations entered the Indian market based on approvals from regulators of individual states rather than the central government, as is legally required. In New Delhi, I'm Sonal Mehrotra, NDTV.
Well, joining us on this discussion tonight, Keval Handa, he's the former MD of Pfizer Limited, Dilip Shah, Secretary General of the Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance, Dr. C.M. Gulati, Editor, Monthly Index of Medical Specialities, or MIMS, Dr. D.R. Rai, former Secretary General of the Indian Medical Association, as well as Harinder Sikka, who's Group Director, Corporate Affairs at Piramal Healthcare. But Dr. Gulati, let me begin with you. Cough syrups like Phensedyl and Corex, we've practically grown up on them. Children have been prescribed them. Now suddenly this government ban. As a consumer, as a patient, how worried should I be?
You see, first of all, before I come, I would not like to comment on any specific drug.
Fair enough.
In this program, it's under sub judice and it would be wrong on my part to say anything. But let's discuss it at a macro level. It is true that India is the capital of irrational combination drugs in the world. More than half of the drugs which are sold in India are combination products. Nowhere in the world such
Would you explain what you mean when you say irrational?
Yeah, when I say combination product, what I mean is that it does not contain just one ingredient, but many ingredients, and you can call them multi-ingredient products or you can call them FDC, fixed dose combination. So it's a menace which has been there.
But when you say irrational, you're saying that pharmaceutical companies actually just add on ingredients which may or may not be therapeutically beneficial.
1 minute. I agree with you, but with a proviso.
Yes.
No drug in India can be manufactured without permission from either the state drug controller or the central drug controller. So companies just don't come up with a fancy combination on their own. Somebody has approved them.
Okay.
So the first point is who has approved this irrational combination. But coming back to the the discussion, when you give combination drugs, either supposing there is a combination of 3 drugs, a patient may require only one, he may not require the other 2. So he is being made to consume 3 drugs instead of 1.
Okay.
Those 2 drugs may be causing side effects, they are a burden on his pocket, etc., etc. So the issue is that combination drugs, or FDCs as they are called, is a very serious problem in India, and somebody had to tackle it at some stage.
Mr. Sikka, would you agree that that this is a serious problem? We hear that almost half the drugs in the Indian market were combination drugs according to 2014 figures. Or do you feel that pharmaceutical companies are now being penalized for what was in effect approval granted by state and central authorities?
Let me take my own company's issue first. I think it is very relevant.
Okay.
That we manufacture Ceridon. It's an OTC product, and this Ceridon is also sold in 80 countries across globe, including Europe. And one fine day, a number of physicians who have absolutely no knowledge of how a regulatory functions decide that we are part of the committee, or they have been formed under a committee, and they decide that this drug should be banned. Why? A drug which they give a reason that this could cause a human life, risk to human life.
Okay.
In 40 years, there's never been a risk. In 40 years, there has not been a single adverse report, not only in India, but across globe. It provides quickest possible, safest possible relief for a headache, time tested, proven. When you remove my product, what happens? You are involving people who will need it, they will buy it. They will not look at the shade between gray and white. A black market or a white market, when somebody needs a drug, they need a drug.
So you're saying that even if they go off the counter in regular chemist shops, they'll still be available in the market. Is that what you're saying?
Where is the regulatory mechanism in our country today? Will the drug controller please explain how many cases of ADR, adverse drug reaction report, has he ever received? Not only from Delhi, but all across the globe, all across India. Maybe 1 or 2. You mean to say there are not adverse reactions on the drug?
Dr. Rai, would you like to come in on that? You've been a former Secretary General with the Indian Medical Association, and you clearly have a view on this. Pharmaceutical companies now saying that this is not only just an unregulated market where already all of these drugs were available across the counter. Now, even if you have a formal ban on them, what's to stop these drugs from being sold or being available quite easily?
This is the most unfortunate part for us, particularly the things which have been banned in India, in the Indian market by the drug controller also. You just go to the Bhagirath place, whatever you want, you can have it.
Right.
So the onus comes from the government only, the drug controller only. Why they are not regulating such type of the companies? If the drug has been banned by the government, it should be removed from the shelf also, it should be removed from the factories also, and they should monitor that medicine will never be available in the market. Second thing is, once we are introducing some medicines in the market, we are taking the data of the Western countries or the European countries, and we are just introducing. We had never done any research on our Indian community, on Indian perspective, what is the effect on that. And after 3 years or 4 years, if we are receiving some complaints from the European country or Western country, this medicine is giving the adverse effect, then also our government is sleeping, which I have fought there. Which I have fought number of times.
Okay.
No, sir, we should have our
But
own
do you
monitoring.
in principle agree with this ban or not?
No, if they are causing adverse effect, it should be banned. And second thing, I fully agree with Dr. Gulati also, irrational use is very much in our country.
Okay.
Multiple drugs therapy is very much in our country.
And these include the use of antibiotics
Yes.
also.
And multi-drug resistance patients are coming in ample now. A time will come when no medicine will be effective on the patient. Being a doctor, it's my duty that I should look after the interest of the common public.
Okay. Let me just bring in Keval Handa, who is formerly of Pfizer. Pfizer, of course, has been in the news, particularly today, not just because it's taken this up legally, but also because Pfizer's shares perhaps were the biggest sufferers today. Mr. Handa, where do you stand on all of this? Again, these are drugs, that these are medicines that we have all taken, we all know very well. There are a lot of consumers out there tonight who are wondering whether they've been having a medicine for the last 25 odd years, which is harmful for them. What would you like to tell them?
So I think my first reaction is that there has been a new system in place whereby any new combination goes to DTAB and that evaluates it very closely and even asks to do clinical trials before approval. Whereas now we have seen an expert committee deciding that 350 products need to be banned or drugs need to be banned, which is short-circuiting the new process. I think they have not followed the due process of law, and they need to follow a due process of law and give opportunity for every company to put their case in front, whether it is medically rational or irrational, that need to be debated and discussed. This type of a broad brushing is not fair. That's my first comment that I need to make. The second is, I do concede that there are drugs which are medically irrational. India is a market where more than 50% of the products are combination products. These have been approved by DCGI. But the way to really manage this process is, again, to look at these drugs, whether they have been banned globally or not. Just to talk about the drugs, we are talking about the cough syrup drugs. They are available in US. If they are available in US, how can you say that these are irrational drugs in India? So we need to have a little bit of discussion.
But are they available in the same combinations, Mr. Handa? Because I think that's the question that's being raised.
Yes,
they are.
Yes,
okay.
It is, the cough syrup is available in the same combination in US also. And there are many countries it's also available. So I think there are not much of a thought process has gone behind it. But there are certain combinations which need to be banned, mainly because it creates a lot of resistance. However, doctors in practice also have to give an opinion. Why they prescribe such combination drugs? If they are comfortable with single ingredient, they should give single ingredient and not go towards the combination of drugs. So the responsibility is both on the pharma company side not to introduce such irrational combination. It's also a responsibility on the physician side not to accept irrational combinations.
Okay, fair enough. Let me also get in Dilip Shah, who is the Secretary General of the Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance, also joining us on this program tonight. Would you in fact agree with what Keval Handa, formerly of Pfizer, is saying, that there has been a broad sort of bringing together of various companies, various medicines under this ban, and individual companies have not been allowed to state their point of view across or state their case across, and that the due process of law hasn't been followed, because after all, these are all drugs that went through some process of getting approval, as flawed as that might be?
Ankita, my first observation.
Yes. Please go ahead, sir. We can hear you.
My first observation is your subtitles were under each person you have said pro-ban or anti-ban. I am not anti-ban. So I would like you to correct that subtitle below the picture. Secondly, I would raise a question that an expert committee appointed in 2014, a year ago, classified certain irrational combinations, and there were about 962. Keval mentioned about due process of law. Now, why did it take government for 12 months and suddenly wake up one fine morning and issue a notification without complying with the procedure laid down under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act? And why do government create this situation where the courts have to intervene? We have an excellent example of Prime Minister Modi asking people to give up LPG subsidies on their own.
Okay, where are you going with this, sir?
Ministry of Health
Yes.
not called large and responsible companies and explained to them that in our opinion these are irrational combinations,
Okay.
and what do you have to say? And no responsible company is willing to continue to sell combinations which are irresponsible. They would have voluntarily withdrawn that. But this whole process
Okay.
has been messed up and made it a confrontation between the Ministry of Health and the pharmaceutical companies.
Dr. Gulati, would you agree that this process has perhaps been mishandled, but at the end of the day, is this a ban that needed to be effected? Because
Yes.
after all, this is an expert panel that's looked at 6,000 combination drugs that were on the
Absolutely.
market, and then in
Absolutely.
the end, 344 were banned.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with you. I think ban had to come.
Yes.
And it has come in fact very late, because I might mention here that as early as January 1982, I wrote an editorial that we have a huge problem of irrational combinations which are harmful. So therefore, the government has not come too early. In fact, they have taken 35 years to do what they should have done at that
But
time.
if it's taken this
But
long,
I'm
then
coming
why
to
not bring the pharmaceutical companies on board and at least get their side of the story as well?
I would like to come to that.
Yes.
You see, the government job is to protect the interest of the patients. Companies are for patients. Patients are not for the companies. So let's be very clear about it. So the government cannot say that if the industry does not like it, then we will not do it. I am in agreement with my colleagues that the companies should also be on board. Now, I don't agree that all of a sudden the government has woken up. No.
Okay.
They examined 6,000 cases. They requested associations to tell their members to come up with all the FDCs in the market and give justification. But I think there is one place where I am in agreement with the industry, and that is the regulatory mess up.
Okay.
For example, first of all, I do not agree that banned drugs are being sold in India. I think we should be very clear about it.
Okay.
Once a drug is banned, it cannot be manufactured, and there is no question of it being sold. And it can be sold for 10, 15 days or 30 days because India is a very huge country.
Right.
And in fact, that brings me to this question. I have read the notifications which they have issued, and I have the whole list with me. Now, they say with immediate effect. Now, that means that from the morning of 11th of March, because this notification is dated 10th of March, even
Right.
though we saw it only yesterday.
Right. So it's with retrospective effect, essentially.
Well, even if it is not retrospective, even if we give 48 hours, how do you tell 700,000 chemists throughout India not
Right.
to sell it? The issue is not that they have not banned manufacture, they have also banned sale. So
Okay.
therefore, technically, every chemist who has sold the drug today has done something wrong and something illegal. So there is a regulatory mess up. I have absolutely no hesitation in
Okay.
agreeing with that.
All right, fair enough. But Harinder Sikka, let's get back to the bigger point of actually how these drugs get their approvals. And is it because, we have these multiple authorities granting approvals, that there is a central drugs standards authority, you also have the states granting approvals as well. Has that created a state of confusion?
You see, central approval is always what is needed, but states have their own rights. So if some company doesn't get, a small time company doesn't get an approval from center,
Yes.
it goes to a particular state and gets an approval. My question is a little more, are we being dragged back to license Raj? Had it been done in some previous government, I would have accepted it because there were too many irrational decisions taken in the past. But under Modi government, one thinks that there has to be more clarity and transparency. You cannot suddenly one fine day wake up and say that no, this is the decision taken. You're going to cost 3,500 crores worth of losses. Now, ease of business is government's motto. I disagree with Dr. Gulati, who says that every drug should be banned under the sun. You do not have sufficient, like for example, in this particular case, our drug,
Yes.
anything before 1988 should have been taken up into this into
And why
this
do you
case.
say that?
There's the QR which has been set.
Right.
They took up a drug which has been cleared long ago by DCGI. It has a absolutely fantastic track record, not only in India but 80 countries abroad. and some physicians sit on some committee and come out with a fantastic decision.
Some physicians on some committee. I wish we had some members of the expert panel also to defend their decisions tonight, but unfortunately we don't. But clearly this is not a debate that's going to go away in a hurry, but we hope we've just managed to really scrape the tip of the iceberg over here. But I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us on this discussion tonight. Unfortunately, we're completely out of time.